Hello, my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. Today, Coach Waterman and I have a special guest, Coach Erik Krebs, who's the Assistant Offensive Line Coach at Laurier University. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. With a different team. This is McMaster. Same sort of thing. Now, there's a lot of kind of extra moving parts here, but what I want to focus on, what I want to focus on is the guys that matter for my offensive line. So we got our big on big read here, or maybe he's the read guy, but we're going to account for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 6, right? Because the quarterback and running backs guy. So those are the 6 guys that we want to worry about. Everybody else will get moved and be brought in the box or out of the box because of the motions that happen. But let's really focus on what's actually happening. So here we are running inside zone. I'm assuming they're going to run it this way just because of running back's alignment. We are showcase block here. We are shoulder read with the guard. We are hip read with the center. We're shoulder read with the guard, hip read with the center. Again, we're running away from the 3-tech. So this block and this block are the exact same. We can rep this in practice, I mean, at least 50 times if we get 130 plays in a week, if we're an inside zone running team, right? Let's see what kind of looks we get here. Let's focus here on the play side. Great, this one's perfect. I remember why I put this one in. So if we see right here, this shoulder read, I would say it's engaging him or it's trying to cross his face. Well, what that tells me is that this linebacker is probably not responsible for the B gap. You know, and this happens a lot with underfronts, is they're just trying to simulate being in a 3-tech and being in a 1-tech, but starting in a different alignment. So this is where the reads come in and they become a beautiful thing. Because this shoulder crosses his face, what I want you to focus on is what happens to the backside hip on my center's read. Right now, first step, what have the hips done? Well, they're maybe engaging in the A gap. Okay, cool. What have the hips done? The hips have totally flown. They are not, we know now, they are not responsible for the A gap whatsoever. This center can put his hand there for support and climb the backer right now. And that's a beautiful, beautiful clip for it because by his second step, the D lineman has declared. By his third step, the offensive lineman 100% has made his decision, go up to the linebacker right now. And I mean, that's a beautiful look for it. I wish that I had the opposite clip where you could see the Western's end zone. But I mean, this is a beautiful clip for it. Let's talk about this 3-tech here backside with the combo block up to Will. Okay. See what happens here? He doesn't fly. So what happens with the shoulder read and the hip read is they engage. So they come in here, they engage. What we do when we engage? Well, when we engage, we know that it's a true double team up to the backer. Well, what happens here? They get in a great double team here. And I would say that the D tackle potentially doesn't do a great job of knifing because after a bunch of steps, it looks like he is A gap responsible, but he's never able to get there because of how well this double team is. I mean, that's a beautiful double team right there. Good job on them, right? But if you look, I mean, it's very similar. We push that hip, we go up. I mean, that's just a great double team, guys. There's nothing new to this, right? I mean, the hip and shoulder read can do what you want. The hip and shoulder read really give you an advantage on this side where you see exactly what happens with the shoulder and the ability to fly. Next clip here is a beautiful clip from the CFL, Calgary versus Ottawa. This is Ottawa running it, okay? And this is a beautiful clip. Again, John, you know, you get kind of those two eyes, those heads techniques, and the linebackers are stacked. So pre-snap, we have no idea who's responsible for what gap. Now, again, I teach it a little bit differently, and I'm not really sure how the Ottawa O-line coach teaches this, and I'm not going to try and discredit a professional coach. You know, here I am, and I'm an assistant O-line coach, so that's not, you know. But, you know, we have here, we would go big on big, showcase block. We have our shoulder read. We have our hip read up to backer. Then we have our shoulder read, and we have our hip read up to 48. he becomes the read guy. And let's see what happens here. So here we go. We take the step. Well, look at, he's already starting to get flow. This guard there would be very hard for this guard to say that this shoulder isn't engaging him. It would also be very hard for this guy. Now, here's one. Again, the hip is starting to fly. I think by this step, you can tell that he's trying to get into B-gap leverage. Again, put that hand on the hip to see if you can solidify him in the B-gap and climb right away. Exact same thing here on the backside. Same sort of look. We're there with the shoulder read. Well, I would say that the shoulder and the hip have engaged. So what I actually think, now I don't know if this is just me or not, but it looks to me like this tackle might be a little bit slow to the party here, because if he's looking at his hip, my rules will tell him that he's engaging. We're in great shape. It should be a true combo block up to that backer, right? Here's a big, big point that I got to talk about real quick is once the D-line has declared, right? So I'm going to say that he's declared to the B-gap, which means that he is responsible for him on almost a showcase block. Now, my center, I would allow him to put a hand and to push him into the B-gap even more, but I wouldn't say that I want my center to engage in a true double team here. But what happens here is we don't allow him to get into the B-gap, okay, into the gap that he's responsible for. And what actually happens is he starts to beat the offensive lineman back across his face once the center has declared he's going up to backer. So I always tell my guys, take the defensive lineman or the linebacker where they want to go and never, ever, ever let them cross upfield back over your face and win. So what I would try and do here is I would try and get him into the B-gap and maintain my inside leverage on him and not allow him to come over top, but rather allow him to come underneath. I always think if he comes underneath, I don't think that he's able to make the play. Coming over top, and we can see it here, he's definitely able to make that play. Right now, I mean, the linebacker ends up making the play, which is, I mean, it is what it is, but I don't like this positioning whatsoever. What I would much rather have is this situation look the exact same as this situation. We don't have to be square. We don't have to be any of that. We can be inside leverage, maintain inside leverage, and don't let him beat me over top. That's a huge, huge rule if you have these kind of reads, because you're allowing them to get to their gap and you want them to get to their gap. What you can't allow them to do is play another gap as well, because that's where everything kind of starts to go downhill. That's also why we play the game, right? That's, you know, if that's where your athlete versus their athlete starts to come in and get involved. And that's, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. That's why you play sports, right? So anyway, so that, guys.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah, really good breakdown. And Coach Waterman, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I thought you did a great job here. And, you know, when you talked about shoulder and hip reads, really it's all about knowing which guys are working the shoulder and hip reads in terms of, you know, what they're seeing. And as long as they know which two are working in combination, they can execute it against any front, correct?
Yes, yes. And that's why, because I feel, I mean, there are obviously a couple little defensive fronts and maybe like run supporting blitzes that, you know, can definitely work against the hip and shoulder read. Don't get me wrong, right? But that's why I say it eliminates the gray area as best as possible, right? When you're coaching this, it's very easy to say, hey, number 64, you have a shoulder read on him. Center, you have a hip read. Well, where did his hip go? Okay, well, why didn't you climb? Why didn't you climb faster? Why, you know what I mean? It's very easy to coach and it's quick to coach, and it's clear. It's not very muddy most of the time. You know, you always get one or two, but being able to eliminate the maximum amount of confusion is ideal. So, yeah.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Coach, and taking us through that breakdown.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on, and maybe we'll see you guys again soon.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep, take her easy.